Good morning, students. In my previous video, I discussed about Industrial Policy Resolution 1956 and their principal elements. Means under IPR 1956, what steps taken by the government for industrial development. Basically, three major steps taken by the government. First was threefold classification, and second was industrial licensing, and third was industrial concession. In last video I already discussed about these policies. Today again I am discussing in nutshell, so you can so it will be easy to proceed this chapter, and you can understand well. The first principle is, our first policy was threefold classification. Industries were classified into three categories: Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C. And though in Schedule A, those which would be established and developed exclusively as public sector enterprises. These include atomic energy, defense, and railway. In Schedule B, those industries were taken and government planned to establish both as a private and public sector enterprises. However, the private sector was to play only a secondary role. New enterprises were to be established primarily in public sector. This category includes fertilizer industry, mining industry, etc. And remaining included in Schedule C, all industries other than category Schedule A and B were left to the private sector. Thus, IPA 1956 clearly implied that a state was to sponsor the process of industrialization in the economy. Means it was decided that the state was to sponsor the process of industrialization in the economy. Second was industrial licensing. What is industrial licensing? Industrial licensing kind of written permission that must be taken before establishing industry by the private sector. Or industry in the private sector could be established only through the licensing from the government. This basic idea of licensing policy was to encourage industry in the backward region of a country, which was to promote regional equality. The license was needed not only for establishing a new enterprises, but also expanding production capacity of the existing ones, and also diversify their industry. Now, next one is industrial concession. The private entrepreneurs were offered many kind of industrial concession for establishing industry in the backward region of the country, and in this concession government gave freedom. Government gave tax relaxation, means freedom from the payment of tax for some time. And second one is subsidized power supply, that is electricity supply. Government would provide electricity supply to the private investors at the subsidized rate. And these policies, like policy of industrial licensing and industrial concession, were expected. These two policies was expected, introduced by the government to promote regional equality. As a student, regional equality, because as I earlier discussed, that main motive of government always is to welfare of the society and regional equality. These principal elements of IPR 1956 I have discussed in my previous class, and today I also discuss it because so you can understand very well. You can understand the IPR 1956. Now the next topic is small scale industry. This is also known as SSI. Another name of small scale industry is SSI. What is SSI? The small scale industry is presently defined as one whose investment does not exceed 5 crore rupees. The industry where investment would not exceed 5 crore rupees is known as small scale industry. But at the time of beginning of planning, that is in 1951, the first planning started in 1951. Small scale industry was defined the one whose investment did not exceed 5 lakhs rupees. 5 lakhs rupees. And in 1951, the industry where investment did not exceed 5 lakhs rupees were considered small scale industry, but at present the amount has been increased, and now the investment those industry where investment does not exceed 5 crore rupees is considered a small scale industry. In the process of industrialization, it had two dimensions. In the process of industrialization, it had two dimensions. First one was growth of large scale industry. Large scale industries are those industries where need a huge amount of investment, like iron and steel, transport and communication, to generate infrastructural facilities, and growth of small scale industries to generate employment opportunities besides social justice. To generate employment opportunity, small scale industries were required, and small scale industry also help in the social justice and social equity. The role of small scale industry in achieving the goals of planning was the concept of a small scale industry in achieving the goal of planning was given by Carvey committee, that is known as Carvey committee. Carvey committee, uh, that was formed in 1955. This committee gave the concept of small scale industry and how small scale industries will be helpful in employment generation and achieve social equality. That is also emphasized by Carvey committee in 1955. It underlined the significance of a small scale industry in and how small scale industry will create social justice in the society. That is analyzed and assessed by Carvey committee in 1955. So students, in other form we can define small scale industry is if with reference to the maximum investment allowed on the asset of a unit. This limit has changed from rupees 5 lakh in 1951 to present limit, that is 5 crore rupees. And now you must have understand what is a small scale industry. Small scale industry is those industry whose investment does not exceed rupees 5 crore, but in 1951 their limitation was rupees 5 lakh. The concept of a small scale industry and their contribution is given and assessed by Carvey committee in 1955. This committee suggested the formation of a small scale industry. Government should give emphasis on formation of small scale industries because a small scale industry is able to create huge amount of employment and also help government in social equity. Now, students, characteristics of small scale industries or features of small scale industries. Here, I will discuss why small scale industries is taken into consideration by the government. Here are some features. The first features of small scale industry is a small scale industry is labor intensive. Labor intensive. Labor intensive means uh, where more labor is required, means manpower is required, and there is less requirement of capital. So SSI is labor intensive and therefore employment friendly. Employment friendly. Employment, a small scale industry is labor intensive. Here more manpower is required than capital, means money, and therefore helpful in employment generation and therefore employment friendly. As a student, a small scale SSI is generally considered to be labor intensive, while large scale industry is capital intensive. Large scale industries, there is more need of money. Here large amount of money is invested in large scale industry. To produce output, a small scale industry is expected to use more and more manpower, whereas in large scale industry there is more and more use of capital. So we can say that for India, because at the time of independence, India inherited an economy from the British which was a capital deficient economy and labor surplus economy. At the time of independence, India have capital deficient, means lack of money, and labor surplus economy. Accordingly, the planners thought to achieving full employment, the focus should be given on small scale industry. At the time of planning, the first plan 1951, and basically in second 5-year plan, it was emphasized that government should focus on a small scale industry, because small scale industry there is less requirement of capital, because I earlier said in 1951 small scale industries are those industry which were in which the investment required was only 5 lakh rupees, and other hand this is small scale industry is labor intensive, where a small scale industry can absorb surplus labor or manpower in the from the economy. So SSI will be helpful in the employment generation, and that is also employment friendly. Now next characteristics of small scale industry is a small scale industry shows locational flexibility. Locational flexibility. Locational flexibility and is therefore we can say equality oriented. Small scale industry shows locational flexibility. Their flexibility matlab means changes easily. Location can be changed, and or the SSI can be established any place of the country, and therefore equality oriented. That is the big thing with SSI, that SSI small scale industry can be established any place of the country, and because of this flexible nature of SSI we can say that SSI leads to equality in the society. Other hand, large scale industry is often established to the close of the source of raw material. Large scale industry can be established where they can get their raw material easily. This is because raw material requirement of large scale industry is very huge. Its transportation from distant place lead to high cost of transportation. On the other hand, small scale industries shows locational flexibility. It is therefore equality oriented, contributing to balanced regional growth. Small scale industry also helpful in the balanced regional growth. Next feature of small scale industry is, that is very important feature, is a small scale industry needs small investment, small investment, and is therefore equity oriented, equity oriented. The next feature of small scale industry is SSI needs smallest invest. Of course, investment is limited, that is should not exceed 5 crore, and is therefore equity oriented. Equity that leads to equity in the society. SSI needs much smaller investment compared to large scale industry. Accordingly, it does not lead to concentration of economic power, rather, it promotes equality across different sections of the society. So, equity is further promoted because of greater employment opportunity per unit of investment in small scale industries as compared to the large scale industry. SSI is able to provide more employment opportunity, and other hand it's required less amount of capital. The limitation is just 5 crore, but on but in a large scale industry, lots of investment is required. Small large scale industries can be established in those places where they can easily find their raw material, whereas in small scale industries there is flexibility in their establishment. Small scale industries can be established in any place of the country, and therefore small scale industry leads to equality and equity in the society. So, in conclusion, I can say that small scale industries are more labor intensive. That means they use more labor than large scale industries, and therefore they generate more employment. In our country, after agriculture, small scale industries provide employment to a large number of people in India. Agriculture absorb largest amount of agriculture provide largest amount of employment opportunity in India. After that, small scale industry is able to provide or generate more employment in India. Second is uh, we can say also that small scale industry cannot compete with the big industrial firm, because and they can flourish. Small scale industries can flourish only when they are protected from the large firms. So, various steps taken by the government for their growth, for the development of small scale industry, various steps taken by the government. Now, students, steps taken by the government for the growth of small scale industry. As I earlier discussed, what is the importance of small scale industry and features of small scale industry, how small scale industry is helpful in the industrial development of our country. So, protecting the interest of a small scale industry, government uh, given various kinds of relaxation and concession to small scale industry. The first is reservation of product. Reservation of product. In reservation of product, government reserved production of a number of product for the small scale industries. Like, the criteria for reserving the product depend on the ability of these units to manufacture the goods. Government reserve few product which where government ensure that this product only be manufactured in the small scale industry. Large scale industry or medium scale industry cannot produce or manufacture those goods, so their interest can be protected, and they did not have to face the competition with large scale industry and medium scale industry. Second is various concession. There are various concession given by the government to small scale industries. Small scale industries were also given concessions such as lower excise duty. Excise duty. Excise duty is the kind of tax that government levied on those goods traded among the state. Next concession given by the government is bank loan, bank loan, bank loans at lower rate of lower interest rates, sorry, interest rates. So bank loan government give provision to small scale industries, so they can get loan at lower interest rate. These are the concession given by the government to small scale industry. In today I finish here. In my next video I will proceed this chapter.